Hey, NorCal Carters. It is July 25th, and this is NorCal Mondays. So tonight, we finally have a full panel of Masters drivers. So we have a good selection here from multiple classes, multiple tracks. But a few of the Masters have kept asking us, where's our Masters show? Where's our Masters show? And we kept telling them, well, we need to be almost as rabid as the juniors because the juniors were pretty good at doing the networking, getting their friends on. They had shows booked out before Ashley and I even knew about it. So tonight we have a full panel of Masters. But before we get to our special guest, we have some housekeeping items here. Again, it's July 25th, 2022. And it is never easy to do. But about an hour ago, I heard about the news of the passing of one of our racers from Sonoma Raceway. Mark Lockett. He was big into the Track Magic OG group. He was really big into the shifter group. Always had a lot of comments and input. On Facebook, his actual alias was Loose Nut. And I always thought it was the funniest thing because I was like, man, that's a weird name. And it took me probably 2 months to realize it was Loose Nut, not Lou Snut. But yeah, sad news out of the Sonoma Raceway. So I didn't want to just bury it at the end of the show. Again, he was a big part of the Track Magic Owners Group and the 80cc shifter group here in Northern California. So our thoughts are with Mark's family. And yeah, I don't know how to segue away from that. So let's see here. This coming weekend, Rock Sonoma, race number 5. We will be doing the live stream at YouTube, Rock Sonoma, on the Rock Sonoma channel. So you go to YouTube, like and subscribe to the Rock Sonoma channel. And also this weekend, we have the CCKRA. They are racing at Santa Maria. And then August 6th, Prairie City, 4-stroke weekend, August 6th. And then August 13th, we have NCK Summer Challenge at Buttonwillow. There's a one-day event on a Saturday. So NCK Road Racers, they will be down at Buttonwillow. And also one of our show sponsors, Aluminos, they will be offering ride and drives and rental packages. So get a hold of Rob over at Aluminos. If you don't know how to, send me a quick message and I will put you in touch with him. But that will be for NCK. Again, the Road Racers will be hitting the big track at Buttonwillow on August 13th. Let's see here. The weekend of August 20th, I believe the actual dates are the 18th through the 20th. I'm sorry, the 19th through the 21st. It was scheduled to be Rock Sonoma's race number 6. That is still taking place, but it's going to be a 3-day event because Rockfest West will be utilizing that weekend. Rockfest West is coming to NorCal on that weekend of August 19th through the 21st. And as of right now, we should be live streaming that on YouTube also. So again, race number 6 for Rock Sonoma in conjunction with Rockfest West. And looking a little bit further into September, CCKRA, they are going to Fresno. So CCKRA, they are going to Fresno to the temporary track. If you are getting ready for one of the Las Vegas events that take place in one of the parking lots and you've never done a temporary track, I would recommend going to the Fresno race. It's in a parking lot. It's going to be a similar track condition that you'll run into down at the big Vegas races. So that way you're not just caught off guard with, how to address the track, chassis setup, tire pressures, etc. So that's September 3rd and 4th at the Fresno Fairgrounds. And with that being said, we're going to bring up David Palick first. So I'm going to give every guest an opportunity to introduce themselves, talk about their home track and what classes they run. And actually, David and his son Keegan, they were my very first video podcast guests last year or the year before. It might have been 2 years ago already.
Yeah.
So David, take over the platform. Introduce yourself. Where do you race? What chassis and what classes do you run?
Yeah, thanks, Jason, for having us this evening. Privileged to be a part of this group and just chat it up with people of like-minded interests. So Yeah, so you mentioned my son. So my son and I race exclusively almost up at Sonoma. My particular class is the 125cc Masters. I run a SOTI package, and I'm under the tent with Nick Leduc in the karting collective. And been karting for, I always have to think of my daughter, who is going on 16. So I'm in my 16th year of karting. Started right when she was born.
16 years of karting.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us again, and thanks for being our guinea pig. I need to look back to see when that was. It might have been 2 years ago.
I think we're going on 2 years ago, Jason, when we had that podcast with Keegan. Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah,
ago.
we had to do it twice. All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. If you have any questions for our guest, chime in the comments either on Facebook or on YouTube. And next up, we're going to bring up Alan Morty. Alan?
Hey, what's going on? I'm Alan Morty. I am a Masters every class driver. I race a challenge and a lot of the bigger events. I race shifter. And then around here locally at Prairie City, I'll race tag, and then I'll also race 206, KPX, and some of Prairie City's local club races. And then I usually supplement the shifter racing with some club racing in Sonoma there prior to some of the bigger races and prep for Vegas. So I'm kind of this in between where my home track is Prairie City, but my home track's also Sonoma. It just depends on the year and what our schedule looks like. But I grew up around the Prairie City area when the Keys owned the track. That's when I got introduced to karting. So I've been karting now for only 5 years. And it's just something I've always wanted to do for a very long time. So finally able to, do that and have that as a fun hobby. And, that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm from. And those are my home tracks.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alan, for joining us tonight. And again, if anyone has questions for anybody on our panel, type away in the comment section. Let's see. Next up, we're going to bring up John Madrigal. John?
Hello.
Those are sharp glasses.
John Abergal. I've been karting. Well, I guess I started back in early 2000s or mid 2000s with Rotax. I currently am Masters 100cc driver. I've been on an OTK basically this year. I just kind of came back to it. My son, for those who know him, is Roman Madrigal, and I've been pretty much just helping him when he got back into the last few years. So I got the opportunity to jump back into the racing this year, which has been a lot of fun. It's a lot of work trying to get on track, same time, and getting Roman off. But it's a lot of fun to be able to run with my son, who basically was like 4 years old when I started, and I raced for a few years, and then I stopped really because, as many know, it's hard to have somebody and try to run them at a race, when they're younger and whatnot. You just got to really fully concentrate. So so I'm on an OTK, or I have been. Took a little bit of a spill and hit last race. Many of you saw that. Thank God it wasn't on YouTube. We didn't have that last time. It would have been a meme everywhere. But I recovered well from that. I actually, I managed somehow to make the podium, and but my kart was a little bit seen some better days. So I will be on a CRG this weekend, just like my son, but not on the newest. He's on a 2022. I'll be on 21, and hopefully, we'll have some good results out of that.
Well, speaking of the live stream, we did miss a lot of good racing action. Yeah. We audioed it, but the audio is just not the same as seeing it live. So if you want to go back to NorCalKarters.com, you can click on the podcast for the audio only. But we will have the camera crews back out there next weekend, so looking forward to that. John, thanks for the introduction. Yes. And next up, we're going to have Tom Fogarty.
Jason, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. So yeah, I'm Tom, or Tommy Fogerty, and I started racing karts back in the mid '90s. as a way to sort of train and get prepared for racing full size cars. I was worked down at Skip Barber, and a guy named Jeff Rodriguez got me into it, and then Benny Moon and Tom Woods and some folks that were a lot more sort of steeped in karting showed up, and they were working down there as instructors as well, and we kind of got pretty serious about it, and I raced CTS Shifter, with Ray and Jeff, and had a fantastic time. Didn't really stick with it though as much as I would have liked, and then was out of it for a long time. Once I stopped racing full size cars, I didn't really do much karting after that. But now I have two kids, Jimmy and Henry, and they're 8 and 10, and I've kind of gotten them into karting, and we live very near Prairie City, which is our home track. And I realized pretty quickly there was a very vibrant Masters and Grandmasters scene down there. So I hauled off and bought myself a Burrell Kart from Donald, and I raced 4-stroke Grandmasters there. My kids are also running 2-stroke, like mini and micro rock at Sonoma with Gary Carlton, and I have a feeling I'll probably get sucked into a 2-stroke Masters or Grandmasters program down there as well. But each track has a different flavor. It's very different between Prairie City and Sonoma. I enjoy them both quite a bit, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I don't race every weekend. Often I'm too much getting crazy trying to keep the kids on the track and replacing bent parts that I'm not able to race myself, but I do race when I can.
Very cool. Well, it's good to have you on the show, Tom.
Thank you.
And
man.
last but not least, Michael Ting. How are you doing this evening? You're muted.
Yeah, gotta find the mute button first. I'm Michael. Let's see here. I'm currently racing in the 100cc senior. I'm here because all of last year I raced the 206 Masters under the Donald Durbin Camping and Go-Kart. I'm one of his customers at Perry City all year. I raced with Alan, his brother Curtis, with Tommy. This year, the plan was to continue doing the 206 Masters, actually 206 Senior, moving down to Senior. We can talk about that later at Perry City. And then the 100cc Senior for this year, also at Sonoma with GFC. This is my second stint in karting or motorsport. My first stint started in 2002, 2003 with Jim Hall down in Oxnard. And funny enough, after that, I attended the Skip Barber racing school, and Tommy and I were kind of, it's just so fun to run into Tommy at the track, and we started talking, and I think there's a non-zero chance, or maybe 99%, that he was my instructor 20-some years ago. So that's really fun. So I'm on my second stint of karting. I started this stint in 2019 when I met Donald when he was still based out in Campbell, which is very close where I am. And I've been a customer with him ever since, from him, being a traveling team to, running the Perry City. So yeah, basically this year the plan is to continue running the 206 at Perry City and the 100cc at Sonoma.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining us, Michael. And I'll bring everybody up here in a moment. So once again, if anyone has any questions, comments for any of our drivers, again, if you're just joining us, this is our Masters panel. And in karting, Masters is kind of an interesting name because it's, well, we have some young guns on the show tonight with Alan. But traditionally, I mean, Masters, 40, 45 and up. But things that depending on the series, it could be a younger age. Um, let's see. Oh, you know what? I don't want to forget. We have Ashley's out of the studio tonight, but she's saying, "Hey, NorCal," so she must be listening because she's chiming in on the chat lines. That's her call sign. Hey, NorCal. And then we have our buddy Ridgely. Ridgely's chiming in. He's a regular. We actually missed Ridgely the past couple of weeks. He hasn't been chiming into the shows, so hopefully it wasn't due to grades, and it can't be because it's summer school. So good to have you back, Ridgely.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Ridgely's saying hi, Michael. Why does only Michael get the shout out?
Yeah.
Because we're teammates.
Oh, and then there's Josh Velos, crickets. You didn't say anything, Josh. Then we got Curtis is chiming in.
Brotherly support.
Yeah, that's right. So once again, this is our master show. We have drivers from Prairie City. We have drivers from Rock Sonoma. We have drivers that are running 4-stroke, 2-stroke, shifters. So ask away if you have questions. Okay, Wally Hicks. Who's Wally Hicks?
Wally Hicks is one of the guys at Three Ventures who makes, my ability to drive the way that I drive possible. He is the one in the pits bringing clients and people in that we bring out to the race weekends under the Ron White tent.
Nice. Hello, Wally. Thanks for joining. Let's see here. All right. So all of you, let's see. Yeah, all of you are racing Sonoma.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The new tic-tac-toe, yes or no?
Yes.
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 I was one of the ones who originally, I think, went up to Steve Cameron and said, "Hey, Steve, this new track layout's great." That was when we did the water barriers. I said it takes away, people who can just afford to throw money at going fast over it, and it makes you have to be, somewhat technical going around there and very consistent. And everybody at the time was like, "No, Alan, no." Especially underneath our tent. And my elbow was like, this is pretty nice. And so the more we ran it, especially the reverse way, that we're running it in the upcoming Sonoma race where you go back down to the helipad and then go up. So not pro national, but the counterclockwise way, it's so much easier to drive on your body. Like when I'm driving home, I'm not like, oh, and remember how you let off with, I'm the youngest guy in the studio. So
Yeah.
David, how about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Yes or no on the new tic-tac-toe?
Sure. I'll kind of echo what Alan's saying there. So the positives are definitely less brutal on the body, and equally important, less brutal on the chassis, like just and the chain, dropping a chain and all that stuff. And you go through there much slower, which, you always kind of want to go fast, right? But you're going through there a little bit slower. That would probably be the downside. And, all in all, I think probably, I think tic-tac-toe, I don't think tic-tac-toe is like a known entity of our track of Sonoma, right? And so to completely eliminate tic-tac-toe would have been taking away a little bit of the character of what Sonoma's about. So I think fundamentally they had to retain an element of tic-tac-toe. And this is probably a nice compromise considering all things. So, that's my feedback on it.
All right, Tommy, have you driven tic-tac-toe, new and old?
Only once, and only in the standard clockwise direction. And it's like obviously a lot of people are complaining about it, which to me, that's kind of a good sign. Like it's good to change things up, introducing new things, changing the face of any existing track is always kind of nice. And to me, and sometimes people get bummed out when people add features to tracks that are less flowing and they're slower and they're sort of quote unquote overly technical. But I think it's always good to have stuff like that. It helps develop a dimension and a facet of the driving that often doesn't get enough attention. And then another part of that to me is we're seeing in all forms of motorsport beyond karting. If you're looking at karting as a development thing, which I kind of always do, we're seeing street courses. Street courses are a thing. I believe there's going to be a NASCAR street course in Chicago next year. I mean, it's sort of the way things are going. So I kind of like seeing things like that added to tracks, which may be an unpopular opinion, but that's mine.
That's yours. And then John,
Yeah.
yay or nay on the new tic-tac-toe?
I like the new tic-tac-toe. I've driven both. I didn't race the old one. I practiced on the old one, but I've raced the new one. Certainly a lot less violent on the body, as others have said, both directions. The new one, it is a little bit, I would say it's a little more difficult to figure out because you just can't maul the curb, just drive right over it, and so it does take a little bit more, I guess, driving finesse if you want to get through there and not, especially in the 100cc stuff, it really, if you drive it wrong, it's like any other corner, you're bogging the engine down and scrubbing speed. So, it's good and bad for that, but I like it. And certainly it doesn't beat the equipment up as much, right? And, the more that we can keep our equipment, longer, especially as you get a little bit older or you've got other things going on, especially you've got kids running and all that, it's an expensive proposition. So just like any other kind of racing, but and it's, nobody likes to throw a chain, right? I mean, if that's the worst thing that happens, right? So you just sit there and you're just like, okay, this is not fun, right? But I think a lot of people enjoyed the old tic-tac-toe from the, it was spectacular to see some things that happened in tic-tac-toe, right? I mean, it was just the guys that just sent it over. I mean, and even some of the young kids, like, Christian Cameron, you loved the old tic-tac-toe and you see the kids flying over, it's pretty amazing, but we have to think about safety and all the other things too. So I'll leave it at that. But I like the new one, but I would certainly, if the old one would have been here, then, I'd be running that too. So.
Yeah. And John, to your point, I agree. Racing a lot of the big events out at Sonoma, I've seen a lot of, sort of like mid-pack kids have their weekend, sort of their mojo taken away by dropping a chain or something. I feel like the experience at Sonoma, getting rid of tic-tac-toe, while the front runners probably liked it, the overall experience for everybody who's there or like sort of intermediate or getting introduced to racing and karting, their experiences, I think, it's much easier to have a good experience and to keep them coming back. And so when I look at karting in Sonoma, I think that's really beneficial because that has been like a lot of people who have traveled out of town have had those issues, or a lot of people just getting started, like you said, maybe they're on a budget. So I think from that perspective, the change has been positive.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, we didn't hear from you yet.
I don't think I never driven the old tic-tac-toe, so for me, I mean, I know general. I'm actually pulling up the track map right now. I mean, I know where generally the track is.
Yeah.
Pull up some YouTube. You'll have to look at YouTube.
Which
Map's not going to do it justice.
Yeah, and Jason, our season go-kart, the guy that said it in the comment, was one of the problems he had was the new sausage curves. Yeah, I've hit those in a shifter kart, and let me tell you, they don't feel good, and they can bend the frame. But I know they think they removed them at Challenge. We had a problem with them coming up, and they pulled them out at Challenge. And so I think last week
it was quite dangerous.
I don't remember them being there anymore.
I remember seeing the stake that for the sausage curve pointing straight up at the apex. Like, no, that wasn't safe. I mean, for me, that section, I think it really it changes the tone for the entire lap. I mean, outside the configuration of the sprint, you're going through a lot of high speed, medium speed corner, and you suddenly come to a parking lot or a helipad, super rough with a very different. So I think the track probably needed something like that to kind of differentiate from the other corners. I wish it would be a bit smoother in terms of what's on the line, the characteristic of it's the cracks and the filler, the sealant. I think hopefully the character isn't added by cracks from the pavement of lack of maintenance. That's as a character by not maintaining that part. I know it's not on purpose, but I think if that was kind of taken care of, going through there would feel a little less random, because you feel like you're on the line, but sometimes you're maybe 2-3 inches off and you hit something, a bump that isn't visually visible when you're sitting in the cart. You get a very different reaction and go, "Whoa, what just happened here? I thought I did the same thing." Having said that, I only did 4 races into Sonoma's, kind of still learning that complex. But my feeling
Well, if you're hitting hard, Mike, you can see all the weeds that are out there now, because we only race on like maybe a couple days. We're only practice like a couple days a month now. So at least if you hit it, you'll have something soft to be on. I remember on the first session on Sunday 2 weeks ago.
I remember arriving there one time, like literally coming down from turn 1, arriving at tick, and then the chopper is trying to land for somebody who had crashed, a motorcyclist who had crashed in the previous session. I'm like, so,
yeah, because that is the emergency helipad.
Yeah.
And then to your point, as far as the surface, they have a big washout down there at the bottom as well, where basically our hillside in the spring, that's where it drains.
Yeah.
So everyone kind of likes tic-tac-toe, the new tic-tac-toe. I find that interesting because when I ask the junior drivers, they hate it.
Yeah.
They have the ribs.
They like sailing it. Like, I'm going to land in Novato. Let's go. Actually, I guess that would be Vallejo going that direction. So another question for you guys, and this one's going to target. So all of you guys are racing competitive karts, and I'm going to do I'm going to punch you guys in the gut with the ego thing here. Some of you have car experience, some of you don't. How do you explain to your buddies that are your friends, like, "Oh, I race karts," and how do you translate to them how much of a thrill the kart really is? Because they're not like, you're looking at the pictures like, "Oh, they're kind of cool," but then you look at guys with race cars like, "Oh, those are really cool," regardless if the kart's faster or slower. What is the sales pitch you give to your buddies on why you race karts? Let's start with John.
Well, I guess I don't hang out with anybody that doesn't want to race. So, at the end of the day, it's like, I mean, if they don't get it, hey, it's fast. You show them some video of like shifters and you start there. And if that doesn't get them, then they're not going to get it. No, I'm sort of tongue in cheek, but it seems like pretty much everybody that you show them a picture of, a kart, and they're like, "Wow, that's pretty cool," and they're like, "What does it have?" And you go, "Okay, hey, you understand a 2-stroke, hey, like a 125 cc, 2-stroke engine, like you have on a dirt bike." "Yeah, okay. Well, now imagine that." And you go, "Well, how fast do you guys go?" Is always the question. How fast can you go? And we say, well, in 100 cc at Masters, we get maybe 68. I'm gonna lie, we go 70, right? We're competitors here. I got to beat them by a couple mile an hour, but 68, 69 mile an hour on the straight. Some of the other guys 72, 73, and 100. You get into 125s, you get into shifters, going 90 mile an hour. So they're like, "Wow," and I think they sort of make that transition to like, okay, that's pretty fast, and if they don't get it, I'll bring them out to the track, and then they can see it, and put them in the first time and get them in a kart. And I'm like, "Hey, just go do a couple laps, just jump in my kart, even if it's 100 cc, just jump in it and go do a couple laps." They're scared you know what, like they're just like, holy moly, I didn't realize it was that fast, you know. And even in a 206, like, you know, they try to drive a 206, like go drive Perry in a 206 and tell me, and make it around a lap, right? Full track, go through the snake pit, go through the bowl, go through everything, and tell me, you know, go do that for 40 laps. So, you know, it's kind of one of those things where I think car guys, I kind of get it. You know, sure, we got, you know, I've got a whatever, you know, I'm not gonna. If they're, I was lucky to drive a little bit of closed door stuff and, you know, do some ST racing and some focus stuff, and you know, it was fun. But quite frankly, I have a lot more fun karting because a lot more seat time. There's so much waiting around, and you just the community is fantastic. So, you know, for all those reasons, I say come to a race, and then you tell me what you think. But, you know, verbally, it's like, okay.
So Tom, what about you? Because you've been around karting and motorsports for a long
Yeah,
time.
I have actually a cool story that I'm going to relate in a second about that. It's pretty funny, but what I think is fantastic for this is something that we didn't have forever. But YouTube videos are a great way to get people to kind of go, oh, wait a minute, that looks insane. That's what you're doing out there in those little things. You know, that's been a handy tool. But here's kind of a neat story from back at Skip Barber, which is where most of my stories come from. We had a student who actually went on. He ended up being a pretty accomplished driver. But do you guys know who CJ Wilson is? He's a major league pitcher, starting pitcher. He played for the Rangers and then ended up back at the Angels because he was a Orange County kid growing up. But he's, you know, I mean, he's a very serious world-class athlete. He's been the starting pitcher for games in the World Series, lost to the Giants, but that's another story. But he came to Skip Barber as a student with a real serious interest in cars and race cars and wanted to learn to be a serious driver, and was kind of one of these guys that was like, oh, you know, I'm going to be awesome at this because I have a brand new GT3 R6 or RS that I bought with my signing bonus. And, you know, I'm always in the left lane on the highway, and, you know, I'm going to dominate here. And, you know, that's the kind of like bravado and self-confidence and ego that athletes like that usually have. But over the course of the 3-day school, which was the first thing he did, he was sort of disillusioned and was disabused of the notion that he was going to be like, you know, the next, you know, he literally thought he was going to be like, why should I do a lead follow with Benny Moon? Because I'm faster than that guy already, for sure. You know, that kind of guy. And
Don't pick on our friend
Benny
Benny.
Moon, by the way, at that time looked like he was about 12, you know, and he was one of the but he still looks like he's maybe 14, but if you get rid of the beard. But he was there, and he of course had his trainer and his nutritionist and his manager and all these people. And Jeff Rodriguez, I don't know how many people remember him. He's gone now, unfortunately, but he was really enthusiastic about karting and very evangelical about it within the Skip Barber community and the car racing community. Sometimes to the displeasure of our bosses, because they wanted all the students spending all their money on Skip Barber stuff. And you had Jeff Rodriguez, you know, selling them shifter carts at lunch and stuff like that. But anyway, Rodriguez was like, well, CJ, you know, you all try driving a shifter cart. Y'all do that. Y'all check that out. He's like, you know, that doesn't look that cool. Remember, I told you I have a GT3 RS, and like, okay, CJ, you know, and then finally he was like, hey, I do want to drive that thing, but let's do it at lunch. I'm going to send my trainer and my manager to the store because they won't let me drive the thing, but I'd like to try driving it. So we got out a 125 shifter and put it on the autocross track at Skip Barber at Laguna Seca. And this dude, who was, you know, incredible as an athlete, it was one of the days at Laguna that was like 90 degrees too, fortunately. But after about 4 laps, that guy was needed to be, helped from the vehicle. That was a pretty neat experience, a neat way to see somebody's eyes open to what karting was all about.
It's a good story.
I like that. Who's next with something similar?
I could take that one.
All right.
Yeah. So, we bring clients and, potential sales leads and stuff out to the track. Ron White does a great job with them, but we also bring out, our employees and people on our team. And a lot of them are F1 fans, and some of them that aren't give me a lot of shit for racing go-karts. And then, so when we have them come out and we do our annual on-site, like Wally said, we put them in a go-kart, right? Whether that's with Ron White and their arrive and drive packages at their road taxes at Sonoma, or whether that's out the rental carts with Durbin out of Prairie City. We usually bring a bunch of people out, and when they're done, they go, "Whoa, man, that is, I could barely hold on to the steering wheel. I couldn't even keep my head up." And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, yep. Now that was maybe like a G. Some corners will pull near 3 Gs, right? Depending on the tires, how much grip's there, everything else. I said, so, we have a good time. And at the end of the day, they usually all shake my hand and go, "Man, I can't believe you do this as much as you do this." So that's my favorite thing. And that's why I think Wally said, yep, to experience it, you just got to get in one.
Yeah, and there's Wally again. Best team building activity.
Absolutely.
David or Michael, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Well, I'll just add, I'm sure we're all been in the same situation. So typically we'll be out to dinner, my wife and I, and on double date or, with other couples, and, inevitably maybe the go-kart subject will pop up, and then you just see my wife's eyes roll, she knows where I'm going, and all the passion comes out, and trying to explain, I think John was saying it, trying to explain what it's like to someone that's never experienced it is very difficult. But, you just kind of, some of the analogy I'll use sometimes is imagine, wrestling with somebody, or imagine jumping into a ring and boxing and being pounded, and then, but still physically being drained, but then trying to keep your mental faculties intact to, hit the apex and to do all the things that are right while you're in the cart. So, not really sharing anything more beyond what's been said already, but trying to relate the really finer details of what they can't experience unless they actually physically jump into the cart. And it's equivalent to like watching motor racing on TV, and we're all fans to the to all these different series, Formula One and all this, and you just you have no concept about how physically taxing it is and mentally until you've experienced it. So it's always a good conversation around the dinner table, right? Talking to friends about it, but inevitably I always get the nod, like I got to move on from the subject.
Yeah, everybody has those hand signals in their queue. Their wife,
yeah,
all like,
it's like the little nudge under the table, like, all right, we've heard enough about karting, Dad. David, let's move on. So
I know what you're talking about.
Anyone else?
Come on, Michael, you haven't picked this one up.
I haven't. I don't know if I'm good at this. I haven't been successful at selling people into karting at all. So I actually, outside of kart context, I actually don't talk about motorsport at all. I especially if I got my wife with me, I need some barrier, or some other part of life.
Best advice ever.
But sometimes when I go to like vintage car rallies or cars and coffee, some people would ask me about it, or I will bring up, so, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't be that weekend. I got a race at Sonoma, or I got a race at Prairie City, or whatever. Sorry, I can't be there." And they I think, like Tommy says, people are a lot more educated now. I think it was 10 or 20 years ago. It was like, "Oh, what is karting?" And when you mention the word, they think golf carts or some kid in a moped in a cul-de-sac, running into mailboxes. I think with internet and YouTube, people do kind of understand, like, okay, here is, IndyCar, Formula One, and there probably is something from here to here, and they know enough. Or I think some of the Netflix series, they do mention, here, where do I come from? Go-kart. catching on your point, but I think people probably they know the ladder, but they don't know the intensity of it. Obviously, you watch Formula One and it's, done with a 600mm lens, you don't really know how fast they're going. And even myself, like only when the first time when I raced at a support race for Formula One, and I was standing at one of the double apex corners at Shanghai Grand Prix. I'm like, well, I've been watching this for like 6 years, and I'm going through there, changing 2 gears, they're flat out. Like I can't comprehend that, and let alone somebody who's not in motorsport to kind of comprehend that what it takes, skill level or physical, whatever, how fast that thing is actually going. You can't tell when the camera's panning like that.
Yeah.
What I tell people is I work out 2 to 3 times a day, a week, just for karting. That kind of gives people a reasonable approximation of the kind of sport it is. Not definitely, you're not on a golf course in a golf cart when you're drunk. So
That's actually a great segue into the next question. So I'm gonna kind of leave you up on there, and then we'll just do a round robin. How do you guys stay in shape for karting? Because I know for me, I'm not big on working out. I have to do something. I have to do something fun. I don't mind if it's a workout if it's fun and doing it, but just to go hit a treadmill or go hit the weights or whatever to try to get into shape for karting is like, whatever. I've always found the quickest way to get into karting shape is to get your ass in the go-kart. So we'll go around the table here. How about you? You're going to pay me money or it costs a lot of money?
Well, it costs a lot of money to work out that way, right? For me, what do I do? Well, I have a Peloton. I try to do that once to twice a week to kind of keep up the cardiovascular. Strength training once or twice again a week. I think I'm a little more unique in a sense that the reason I have 2 stints in motorsport, I had a serious health issue in mid 2000 that took me out of any kind of sport until 2018, 19. So, and then when I came out of that health crisis, I was like 90 pounds with 0 muscle mass and I almost died. So for me, it's kind of rebuilding my body back to where it was. So it's, protein shake and all that kind of stuff. And karting kind of, on the flip side, gives me the motivation to kind of get back into shape and maybe hopefully, and then some more. In terms of the boring part, I when I'm on a bike, when I'm on a Peloton bike, I mean, they do a good job and keep it entertaining, obviously. And obviously make sure you choose the right instructor. So then it's a little eye candy for 35 minutes. But with weights, I think what I do is like, God damn it, Curtis is pushing me out of the track last time. I'm gonna get it next time. I try to visualize, kind of think about what happened at last race. At the end of the last couple laps of every long race, especially that the main, it's like a 25 lap main, you're feeling it, right? It's like, maybe I had a little more cardio, maybe I could catch up with there. Or if I had been more muscle here, tic-tac-toe or the top of the hill going down at Pier City, I could do 6 more of that. And I remember these things. So I'm in the gym, I'm thinking about, I was like, let's not make that mistake again. And so that's how I kind of keep building my body for it.
Hey, Curtis, are you still listening? Michael said you pushed him out.
No way.
Oh, I was right behind. I remember watching the whole thing. You guys went through the dirt.
Did you push them both out of the way, Alan?
No, I didn't push them both out of the way.
So what is your off-the-track routine for staying in shape?
Man, I don't know if I'm giving away some trade secrets here. Curtis and Wally might get mad at me. But, the trick that I've found is, you've got to have a whoop strap. I think Michael has a whoop strap. He's got his on. And you got to wear it while you're racing. So what I've found is there's different levels of intensity with running a shifter versus a 206 versus a tag, right? And realistically speaking, your heart rate it is constant in a shifter, right? So I'm constantly between 150, 155. I mean, it's just a perfectly flat line for 20 minutes, however long the race is, right? Versus a tag, my heart rate progressively goes up. Versus in a 206, my heart rate progressively goes up, right? So if I'm racing shifter and I'm getting ready for shifter, I'm usually doing different types of activities that are spiking your heart rate to 150 and then remaining constant for about 30 to 35 minutes. Because what Michael said was, hey, you got to be disciplined towards the later end of the race to not make a mistake, to be in shape and everything else. And what I found is, if you're racing for 20 minutes, you have to train for 35. You have to train for 40. Because where you really start to get fatigue and you start making those mistakes, especially in shifter, is you start making them, when you start to get taxed right around, 60, 70, 80% of the way in the race, or at the opening laps, because your heart rate is so jacked up. So what I try to do is I try to simulate as much of that training as possible at that heart rate. Curtis has been very instrumental in helping me out with that. So running is the single best thing that you can do to train for that. You need different levels of intensity with running. It's the next thing that I found is boxing. Boxing is the second closest in terms of matching the heart rate. And then for the most part, you have to do a lot of auxiliary work with being in shape. And being in shape really is, your wellness, from your nutrition to your sleep. And then also, some of your physical wellness with weightlifting and some bodybuilding there. But more importantly, core and neck are probably the two most important things to have really strong, outside of having that good cardiovascular strength. So that's how I train and prepare. So I have different regimens based off of what classes we're running.
So 206 is pizza and beer?
No, 206 is not pizza and beer. I have an iron neck too, Mike, or Michael, I'm sorry. But my older brother's name is Mike, so it's a bad habit. But I just did that at the gym today. But 206 is not pizza and beer. I tell Ron, and Ron thinks I'm full of crap, that 206 racing is the best racing to get in shape and supplement when you're running shifter. And the reason why is because you have to be so consistent over longer periods of time. And then in addition to that, the 206 is not fast enough to load a go-kart. Not like a shifter. I mean, when you're in a shifter, you can feel the whole thing load up and it carves and it's real nice and you become one with the go-kart. Whereas in the 206, basically all of the G-forces of the go-kart go through your body because the go-kart is not loading enough to really flex and load and rotate off. So you're pretty much creating the rigidity as the driver. So I find the 206, I have a lot of lateral and neck preparation that I need to do there. And, to get ready for the 206 races, you have to do longer stints, right? Because in a shifter, you might have 20 laps, 25 laps at Sonoma, but very rarely do you ever get to practice 20, 25 laps. But in a 206, if you're on a practice day, like you need to be doing 20, 25 lap sessions, because in a 206, you're usually having a little bit of a longer race, towards the end. And what I'm getting at here is, it's harder in a 206 because you have to be so consistent and they go slower to get 20 laps in, right? And so you have to go out on practice days where you can do those longer stints and durations because you have to be so consistent for 25 laps versus in a shifter, you mess up, you just go down in here, right?
I don't know if I'm buying that completely, but it does make sense.
It's okay. It's 8:20. My brain's a little scrambled.
Who's next on that same one? How do you guys stay in shape out of the kart for the kart?
Well, I'll take it.
I'm with you, Jason. I have a hard time. I mean, I've done it when I had to do it, spending an hour a day in the gym or 2 hours 3 times a week or whatever. But that's the only time I've ever had the motivation to do that, unfortunately, is when I'm racing or trying to race at a more competitive level or whatever. But the thing that I've always relied on, and karting, of course, requires as much physical condition as as any form of motorsport, probably, or any that I've ever done, certainly. But mountain biking is great because, as somebody mentioned, it's core and cardio are the two things, right, that you need, and you need them both in spades. I've always just naturally had pretty good upper body strength, so that's not been an issue for me. And as far as your neck in karts with sticky tires or downforce formula cars or whatever, I have never found anything that gets you ready other than just driving. I know there are exercises that trainers will have you do, and I know the F1 drivers and the IndyCar drivers and folks like that, they probably have to do it in the gym because they simply can't drive those cars or karts often enough with their schedules. But I've always found that that the neck is the thing you have the hardest time with, and that just means more driving. Most of the rest of it, a mountain bike can give you that core and cardio that you need. And I'm not doing any of it right now, unfortunately, which is if I start running the Masters or Grandmasters class as consistently as I want to, I will be motivated again, and I'm looking forward to that.
Very good. Who was next?
I guess I'll go. So I'm with you, Jason, and Tom. I've never been a big gym guy. Obviously, you can see I'm not a big guy, but I was a runner for most of my life, and so I used to do a lot of running. It was very obviously good for the cardio, and I did multiple different workouts. That was sort of my first stint. I would just do that back in when I was doing Rotec stuff, but I was working a lot, so I just do runs, and that helped. And then just as Tom said, getting in the cart and driving. Now for the last this is going on 9 years now, I don't do anything else, but I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So I do competitions. I compete quite a bit. I train probably 6-7 hours a week. I just trained right before this podcast and I'm doing 7-minute rounds with a 45-second interval break and hour and a half, 2 hours straight. So I find that there isn't any, for me, there isn't, I get core out of it. I get upper body strength. I'm using my legs. I'm using my, every part of my body. My neck is getting compressed and moved in different ways. So it directly translates to karting, for me, as far as the strength that I need, whether it's the neck strength or just the core strength and the stamina and cardio is there. Like I could, run all day and get to the end of the race and be like, all right, let's do another, 20, 30 laps. I'm ready to go. So I always say I may be, a tenth or two off in the beginning of the day, but I'll get you in the long run. So, if you just be in shape, or I'll make it up in the main, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much all I do. And it takes pretty much all my time outside of, work and karting. So.
All right, who's next up on that one? Was it
Yeah,
David? We haven't heard from you yet, right?
Yeah, I think I'm the last one on this subject. So I'm not going to add too much to what's already been stated. I mean, I think fundamentally the comment about the number one training for karting is actually to be in the cart. So, but we can't always do that all the time. So I'm full agreement with that. That's with this particular sport, that is without question the most important thing. So what I do to kind of supplement my training schedule. So I've been an athlete since I was a young kid, and it's still very much part of my life. We live here in Santa Cruz, so mountain biking is a big thing for me and my son. We mountain bike 2 to 3 times a week or ride on the trailheads where we live here. So that's a core thing that we do quite a bit. We're in the water a lot, so I surf a lot, and a lot of the surfing translates to like the fluidity and being smooth and that sort of thing. So that's like sort of a piece of it as well. Running, I've been a runner my whole life as well. So running. So those are the 3 things that we do. But the one thing I will add is, you know, as I gotten older, you know, I've added the element and the importance of the non-physical stuff. So more the mental part of any sport, right? Or anything you do. And so like, for example, like preparation is a big thing, like removing all the stress, if you will, before a race weekend, like, you know, having all your ducks in an order leading up to that Saturday morning departure to go up to the track for a race weekend, you know, spending all day Saturday and then being prepared for Sunday. So that's a preparation for me. That's sort of the more the mental preparation side, and removing that stress, you know, kind of helps out with the weekend. So, you know, there's more than just the physical part of it. There's just kind of clearing your mind as well, which I think is important, so that when you're in the heat of a battle, then, you know, on the track, that, you know, you don't have other things taxing your mental piece of it. So that's all I'll add, just more the mental piece as well.
Yeah, I agree with David, 100%.
Yeah, me too.
So we have a comment here from NorCal's finest, Phil Hand, the flag man. I give you a skosh every time a master or grandmaster driver looks at me waiting for white flag when it's only halfway.
Oh man, yeah.
I've done that to him a few times. Like, oh.
LA. If any of you guys have ever raced in LA, especially a big national race, man, I tell the guys there all the time, like Nick Firestone and some of the other guys in Master Shifter, I'm like, dude, hats off to you guys at 50 for you're doing what you're doing, because I'm 32, right? And it's like Phil said, it ain't even halfway through the race, and I'm looking for the white flag, right? Because it's such high grip. I mean, it's so many G's going through the shifter cart, and if anything is wrong with that go-kart, if it's got too much grip or it's too stiff, I mean, you feel freaking everything. Yeah. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone sort of commented about, you know, during a practice session, being able to do 20 or 25 laps is critical, because just having that, building up that endurance, it can make the difference late in the race for sure. So I myself, every time I'm at the track, I try to definitely get those long runs in just to build that endurance for race day.
Absolutely. Another impact for us older people, folks, is being able to do multiple practice days back to back. You know, being able to do 20 laps in a single session is one thing, but then able to not do all the session that's available in a day, and then say, well, let's do that Friday, Saturday, and then be ready to race on Sunday. I'm kind of still working on not able to do Friday. I mean, right now I think I can do all the sessions on Saturday, and to be able to go, I could do the main. I remember at the first Sonoma race earlier this year, having done all of Saturday, and I remember David and I, before the main, so we'll do it. We're doing it, but for sure the body's telling us maybe you don't want to do it.
Well, you know, you bring up a good point. That's another piece of this topic, is recognizing when it's time to sit out a session and rest and be fresh for when you have to be sharp, right? So that's a part of the training as well. And you know, we're all mature, and we kind of, you know our bodies and how we react positively and react negatively, you know, at this stage in our life. So recognizing when it's okay to sit out and just chill for an hour or so, or 2 hours, you know, on that practice day leading up. Because ultimately, I mean, what's the most important thing? The most important thing, well, you know, qualifying, obviously, but beyond qualifying, it's race day. It's the race event, and
the main event.
How at the end of the day, after, you know, 2 full days, if it is, or maybe 3 days leading up, how are you going to finish at Sunday afternoon? That's what it is focused on. So
I even got something to add to this. And Jason, I think this is what's going to set us apart from these junior kids that you always love having on your show. So outside
You're 32.
Outside of paying our own bills, right? I'm the junior master. Shut up.
You're the junior masters.
But outside of paying our own bills, right, we have to be more mentally disciplined in racing, because we got everything else that we got to handle in life. And what has really taken me to the next level, And I think some of you guys have seen this from last year to this year, especially with the performances we had at Challenge. What really took it to the next level was actually the mental part, like David was talking about, right? And Curtis, in go-karting age, we're 32, right? But just laughing at Curtis. We turning 32. But my point is the mental side of the training. I started working with Jason Flores, right? And he started consistently tuning and he started consistently wrenching with me. And what I had to do was focus on more of what I had to do as the driver. And so, like David said, being more self-aware. How much energy do I have? Where am I beat up? Is something wrong that I need to work on or roll out or take care of myself the night before? Am I eating right? And then in addition to that, like getting into the zone when I go out for a session, what am I working on? And then when I come back in, before I start, BSing or talking to anybody else, I think about, okay, what was happening with the go-kart? What do I need it to do? Is it too hard to drive, or am I over driving it? Right. And so I think a lot of that mental focus is really at the track, what takes you to the next level. And some of the feedback that I hear from a lot of the juniors is, they're just having a good time with this right there. I think the difference between the good juniors who go immediately to senior and start winning is they have a lot of that self-aware, sort of trait to be able to have that discipline like David was talking about. David's been doing this for obviously 15 years, so he's developed that. Right. I just developed it, I'd probably say in the last year and a half, and it's made a big difference.
Yeah.
I like it. So Ashley is pretty prompt. When she's running the board, she's like, hey, we're on for an hour. We're cutting you off. I'll run on for 4 hours. So I'm going to leave it up to the panel here. I have a hot topic question. We can go down that rabbit hole, or we can have everyone plug their businesses and sign off. I'll leave it up to the panel. But the master's age.
Oh, sure.
We can even wrap the show up that way with.
I'm happy.
And I don't want to pile on about the master's age. I will say it out loud. I posted on Facebook. If you're young enough to be my kid, you shouldn't be in masters. And I'm 46.
Yeah, I agree, but I have a solution.
Okay. All right. Then you go first.
I personally think, because like for me, I let off in the pre-airing telling you guys, I've always been 20, 25 pounds over the master's weight limit.
Yeah.
Right. If you are going to be under a certain age, whether that's 40 or whatever the general decision is, right, you have to take a weight penalty because you have a youth advantage. Right, which is very true on some of these high grip tracks, right? If I'm competing against somebody who's 50, there's just a natural stamina advantage that I do have, right? And this is a question that I faced definitely as a young masters driver for a long time. And I've thought about that. Hey, if somebody's racing at 410, I need to be at 420 or 425, right? Because that weight advantage does make a big difference. And as you start stacking that weight on, think about this. The seniors and senior shifter, they're only 20 pounds heavier than us, right? Maybe 25 pounds heavier, and they go almost a second faster. So you think about that as the difference. I think that is the solution to get more people out racing karts, to not necessarily limit it because of Formula One Drive to Survive. You have a lot of people like myself who have money, who want to come out and race go-karts, whose parents didn't have the money to do it, and now it's been something they've been wanting to do their whole life, right? That's what I think the solution is, right? Because I have been at the butt end of your comment and had to think about what is a good solution for this, because my only way to race is racing masters. I can't race senior. I physically can't get down to that weight. I'm at the best shape of my life, and I'm still 210 pounds.
Anyone want to add to that?
So I'm on the flip side, right? I got to race seniors, and I'm not getting any younger. But I think I'm aging faster than I can gain weight to race, masters properly. Let alone lifting my go-kart on a ghost car stand, which some of you probably want to at one time help me.
We run off.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's hard But Ellen and I probably the exact opposite on two of the barometers, so weight and age, right? And then my challenge has been, I mean, having to strap 100 or 110, 120 pounds on a go-kart. First of all, I had to pay for that. And then it's very, very difficult to drive. And I think probably more so than all of your kart, because I had to physically put in the torque to bend the chassis with all that lead. And
So-
my arm is half as size as everybody else's.
Mike,
Which is what I'm doing senior.
Sorry, man. I thought you were done. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no. I mean, I was just, you know, I don't have a solution. I'm just saying, you know, there
I have a
will
solution for you.
always be somebody else on the polar opposite.
You're not gonna tell him to run Junior, are you?
No, I'm
Like
not going
you
to tell them to run Junior. That'd be mean. Come on. They only run. Yeah.
I thought about it. You know, I thought about it.
Yeah. What I was going to say is you should, like we talked about the mental discipline and the training, you should consider finding someone who has raced who is your similar stature. When I stopped racing with Alex Keys because he moved down to LA and I started racing with Austin Elliott from Speed Sense, Austin and I are similar heights. So he had some tips and tricks that worked for me as a taller driver, right?
Oh, sure. I guess
Right.
we're talking about getting people into a sport, right? Like as many people as your parameters, they will be,
Right.
you know, people who are living out of sport that fit into telling well, on my parameters. I think so. I mean, I'm not proposing anything because it seemed to be. I think we should take it, you know, case by case basis. I have some assumptions about, like, for example, John, and the 100cc Masters at Sonoma. Do you think everybody has to put on lead? If everybody has put on lead, maybe the weight come down a little bit.
But you know, actually,
That's actually what's holding me to go join you guys, because you know Gary and Sonny's like, I don't know where to put 30 more pounds on here to join you guys, which is why I'm in the senior.
Yeah.
If y'all are having to add by 20 more pounds, which is what David is doing.
well, we actually discussed that, and unfortunately, you know, that not unfortunately. I mean, it is what it is. There is one or two that compete Masters 100. They don't put any weight on. So if that wasn't the case, then, you know, if it was the common denominator was okay, the least common denominator was take off, you know, 10 or 20 pounds. I mean, I personally put, you know, I mean, I don't care seeing what my weight is. I mean, I'm basically at 150 pounds, right? I mean, I'm just what I walk around with. That's what I compete at is 153. So I'm always there. And so I put on, you know, about 62 pounds, I think is what I put on the kart, right? I know you got to put a little excess, but
All right, you can lose 30. I don't know how to put on anymore.
yeah. So, I mean, it's, you know, I mean, it's considerable, right? I mean, but I just, you know, I don't know what else to do. It's like you gotta get there. So I do it, and you know, for a solution, honestly, you know, it's difficult because there's always the outliers. You're going to be,
Absolutely.
you can't, it's not going to be a one size fits all.
Yeah.
Back in the road tax days, I know we ran within senior, it was senior light and senior heavy, but we had a lot more competitors, right? So there's enough to make up both classes, and that kind of thing as well, right? And I can't remember if they did a Masters or whatever. They just did it, you know, light and heavy, right? And it was, you know, probably a 20-pound differential or something. And that's one way to handle it, but maybe, you know, maybe there's another way. I don't know, but certainly.
I want to throw this out. Do you think because this is a sport, there's a limit of how heavy of a person we can accommodate, or we should be accommodating? You know, Doug Boer and I were talking about. It's like, if you don't want to work out, then we're not all putting on leg to accommodate.
Well,
obviously, we're talking about a hypothetical person out there, right?
Yeah, I'm probably the rarity, a college football player who became go-kart racer.
Yeah, if you're super fit and you have all that muscle on and you're legitimately full of all that muscle weights, and that's great.
Yeah, and
But
I think
then,
Well, I mean,
I
you
think
kind of
Steve
do in
brought
a
up
way.
the point. Get back to the age.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, to me, Alan really hit it on the head. Is where I was going with it, because you have, he mentioned the age thing versus not even the weight. To me, it's an age thing. I personally don't run masters because I don't want to add more weight to the cart, and I kind of like getting knocked around the track by the senior guys. It's frustrating, but it's a harder workout for me, and they are a lot more aggressive than masters. But the reason I bring it up is I didn't want to start like a shit show with no solution. But if you look across the board in many different series, it seems like our master groups has been suffering or declining. And it's, I don't want to pick on you, Alan, but you have the younger guys coming in because they don't have anywhere else to go and they still want to race. They still want to compete. So I just find it interesting how masters seems to get lower and lower age limits. And it seems like it's pushing out our, 40 and over guys. And it's in the past, our two big demographics have been junior racers and 40 and over. Like there was always a glut in the middle.
I
so
disagree.
what do we think about Donald's Grandmaster class?
Yeah, what is the age of the
I'm
grandmaster?
not ready to be in the class determined grandmasters.
Yeah.
I mean,
That sounds like my grandfather, and I'm not a grandfather yet. So
I think Donald.
I would like to see a class where it's a heavy, where Alan could run, he'd be competitive in a heavy, but where it's weighted, and then the age is the same too. Because Alan hit it on the head. It's like he's younger. It's like add 20 pounds to my cart because I'm younger, apples to apples, I should be more competitive.
Right. I agree 100%. And keep in mind, at the national level, I was like maybe 1 or 3/10 off of, Billy Cleveland and Derek Wang and those guys who are big time masters drivers. So, the weight, I think that there's a good solution with the weight there, but I personally think that, what you just sort of implied was that young guys coming in are driving older guys out. I think it's much different. I think we had this shot of steroids with COVID. There was nothing to do. Guys went out and started racing go-kart. Netflix is a big thing. Formula One Drive to Survive came out. There was a lot of influence there, right? Now you have to think, guys who are 40 and 60, we've got to make money to do this, so we got to go to work. We probably have a wife and kids, right? And more importantly, we probably now, instead of planning our racing schedule, because nothing else is done first, we have to plan our family schedules before we plan our racing schedules. And so what I always see is people always complain sometime between May and September that there's nobody racing. Well, that's because that's the time kids are out of school, they go on vacation, everything else. Yeah. And it always is good at the start of the year, and it always picks up at the end of the year, right? And so that's more of what I see is, we have a lot more life responsibilities that have came back, now in the post-COVID world. And I think that's a lot of the areas. Plus, we're over racing, period. There's no question about it. There are too many races all the time. And that, unfortunately, just, you can get burnt out on this real easy. And it's also, you can get divorced doing this real easy too, right? So you got to be cautious.
There's like some uncomfortable laughs going on.
Tom knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Hey, but back to the Grandmasters thing. I mean, at Prairie City, I've missed the last race or two. So, tell me, one of you guys, what are the car counts like in Grandmasters right now? Because they were fantastic at the beginning of the year and last year.
Look it up.
I want to say Grandmasters at the last race had like somewhere between 6 and 8.
Oh, so it's gotten quite a bit smaller. Okay, but at any rate, it was 15 plus last year, and I think the beginning of this year. But I was at Prairie City today, and there's two brand new. They may have raced the last race or even the last two, but there are new people coming in that age group, right? And I mean, it's about making the sport accessible and growing the sport, and that's a pretty fertile garden for that. And I think Donald does a fantastic job of I think there were more than 10, but I could be wrong. But
15.
That's an area that I think needs to be it needs to be harvested. You know, it's an attractive thing for people that I love that he did it. You know what I mean? I'm mostly focused on my kids. I ran, I think, 2 or 3 masters races. It was back when you were doing it, Michael, and it was awesome. It was a blast, but it was extremely intense and which is great. But there was also there were 1 or 2 people in there that in my opinion, didn't really have their a lot of perspective of exactly what it was, and it was a little ridiculous at times. And in Grandmasters, you've got people who are quite quick. I mean, you've got Chavez and you've got Boer and you've got, there's people that run fast. But everyone out there is sort of like somebody mentioned self-awareness that comes with age, ideally, knock on wood. But everyone out there sort of has personal goals for themselves. Everyone's having a great time. Everybody's got somebody to race with. Everybody understands that, it's unlikely that, Helmut Marko is going to call them anytime soon. There's seems to be a pretty healthy appreciation for racing what it is. So I hope the Grandmaster class grows. And I shouldn't be this ignorant, but where does Masters start? Is it what's minimum age for Masters?
30.
30.
Yeah.
I know for me, man, the big difference between 30-year-old Tommy Fogarty and 40-year-old Tommy Fogarty. Big
Thank
difference.
you, Tommy. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
30-year-old Tommy was a lot like 20-year-old Tommy. 40-year-old Tommy shares no physical characteristics with 20-year-old Tommy. Yeah, and 50-year-old Tommy is even more unrecognizable.
Yeah.
I agree 100%, right?
Yeah.
And Michael, I was just thinking about your weight gain. Have you tried a lead vest?
What? A lead vest.
A lead vest.
That's gonna do my core great.
I saw Enzo Prevost, if you guys know him. He used to race senior shifter. He used to tape lead weights to the side of his helmet so he could work on his neck strength while he was driving a shifter.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have Jared Sims chiming in. Let's see, 35 right now at PC, IKF, KPX are 30 or 200 plus pounds.
Yeah, and see, I fall into that category of, I'm at the lightest I've ever been at 210. When most of my racing I've been 215 to 220. So yeah, the weight, because I've been so heavy, has always been a disadvantage. But Tom, like you said, I think there's a big difference in the age. People have to recognize that. We saw Young Bizak came back and he's been racing 206. But realistically, I think, think back to the Masters car count and the age thing, a lot of Masters have gone 206. And I think that 206 is probably the best class for Masters because A, it's competitive, B, it's cost effective, and C, we have a lot of local series. If you want to race it seriously, you can go to KPX. If you want to, have fun, you can go to Prairie City or Davis, right? And we're in this good little central area. And motors are cheap. We got some engine builders in town, and so when we look at like what David does with the 125 or what I do with the shifter, right? The Masters numbers just aren't there unless they're big races.
Yeah.
But, if you look at some of the club races, and I'm sorry, I had the Masters and Grandmasters numbers backwards for that last race.
John, what do you think? You're the only Masters.
Well, I have to say, I'm just going to speak up for Masters 100 for this year because, certainly it's been one of those things that last year, and it's flip-flopped because we're going to do 100 Masters, they're going to do 125. I think David got kind of caught up in that, unfortunately. But if we went from 4 drivers, maybe 5 or 4 in the first race. We've had consistently for the last 3 races now 10 drivers in the Masters 100, and we had, I think, 13 in one race, and we've got a pretty good, solid core group now of coming out, and a lot of people coming and talking about it, a lot of new karters moving over from other things like drifting, and there's a Sherry and Kyle. Sherry started this year, and she moved over from drifting, and she's done a couple of races, and it's great because now you've got somebody to race with at every level in the race, right? There's a good, strong front pack is good, strong mid pack is good, strong pack towards the rear. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully. I'm saying that it makes you progress and it makes everybody better. So we just keep having this good turnout. And I think, this weekend's race, we should be right around 10 again. We have a couple of people that are out of town, but it seems like a couple of people come out of town, then a couple new ones come in or whatnot. But I know Michael's got a teammate at GFC, so we've got almost every team represented. We've got GFC, got Scott Formanek at Speed Sense. We've got Andrew David's teammate over at Karting Collective, myself, Ron White Racing now, and Tavish Grain puts out Josh when he does that. SSI, so it's kind of cool to have a representative of all the teams as well. And so anybody looking to come out and that's been doing 206 and wants to kind of try something, come out and do 100 or come out and do 125, and we can certainly steer to, all of these teams have the ability to put you in a cart, and it's a lot of fun to do that. And I think the competition is certainly there too. So
yeah, and I think that's a good place to start wrapping up the show for two reasons. That's a great segue into our buddy Andre, who John knows really well and Michael knows, and Ashley is yelling at me through text messages, Jason, wrap it up. So on that note, we have Andre, and I know John and Michael, I know a lot of you are on a chat line, and he's been pushing that thing for like a year for that Master 100cc class.
Yeah.
And I remember he was talking to me, he was talking to Steve Cameron, and he kept telling us, oh yeah, I'm talking to everybody. And then, I don't know, at the beginning of the year, I looked up and saw 15 Masters on the track for the 100cc. It's like, oh wow, this guy really has been talking to people, and they have that network going, and they enjoy going to the races and racing against each other.
And they're serious. Like a lot of them, I did the first race, and I just I put the cart together. It was the old, we call it the dead speed, and threw it out there. And I didn't do any changes. I just kind of ran it, out of the box. And I've come to find everybody, they're doing data, they're changing axles, they're really looking at everything, and I'm like, okay, all right, game on. This next race, I guess I got to get my, my stuff to get a little bit better. But yeah, it's been fun to see the progression of it and see all these guys get excited about it and really take it. They look at data just like everybody else, and it's a really great community. I like being able to walk around when I have time to go to all the different pits and just talk with everybody and kind of see what's going on and see everybody kind of having a lot of fun and getting out there, which is the biggest thing, right?
What I like seeing in your master class, what I really enjoy seeing is the new faces. It's not, you're not pulling from one track or one class and growing your class. There's a lot of brand new faces out there.
Yeah.
So John, I'll give you the floor to wrap up. Anyone you want to say thank you to? Do you want to plug your business? It's a Masters show, so I assume you work.
I work. Nothing to plug. I'm sort of a freelance finance and operations consultant, so I work a few different clients and whatnot, but I try to help out the race community as much as possible. I do help to support the Rock Sonoma series. I'm the happy hour pre-registration guy on Fridays and all the other back channel stuff that happens between the races, and I try to help out with that and get the cart count up and whatever I can do. But shout out to Ron White Racing for helping, and all the other teams and all the other the great people there. As I mentioned, Austin at Speed Sense, Gary at GFC, Tavish, Jason Chad at SSI, Nick LeDuc at Karting Collective, we don't even talk about Luminos, but Suarez and everyone else that comes out and contributes to help make this a really great racing experience at Sonoma. And anybody that's looking to come out, and you'll be surprised to see, you're like, okay, it was a club race, but it's serious business, right? Like everybody, when you come out and you see the paddock and everybody's got their tents and everybody's focused and all the stuff's happening and changes and whatnot. It's a good time. Bring your family. Obviously, there's plenty to do. So I just wanted to also, to Steve Cameron for, making the grueling, the walk to the track and getting everything going for all these races as well. So, just a shout out to everybody, and of course, all the fellow competitors and every class, right? From micro mini all the way up to, our master, different classes, and to you too, Jason, for putting this together. So.
Oh, no
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely.
I like talking.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason. We appreciate it. And if anybody's watching, come out to Sonoma and watch or come race this weekend. If you're a Masters driver, you can race with David, you can race with John, or you can come race with myself.
That's right.
That's right.
Hey, Tommy. All right. Thank you, John. If you want, you can stay in the lobby, and I'm going to bring Fogarty up real quick. Tom, any final thoughts? Plug your business.
Yeah, I'd love to plug my business. I've got a couple of them, but I've got Thomas Fogerty Winery and Vineyards in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Lexington Wines in the Santa Cruz Mountains, northern end of the Santa Cruz Mountains. And my wife does agriculture and vineyard photography for social media and print media. And I do sort of brand consulting for small high-end wineries and agricultural concerns too. That's what we do, and it doesn't always cross promote that well with motorsports, but I've actually found as many people in karting that have become like good customers of ours and club members and all that kind of stuff I have pretty much anywhere else, including crazy things like Ferrari Challenge and really, really high-end esoteric vintage stuff. But the one of the great things about the karting community is more than in any other part of motorsports that I've been around, people really tend to be supportive of each other and their businesses, which I really appreciate.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, and also since we're on the theme, we talked a little bit about what's going on at Prairie City, and I would encourage anyone who's a Masters or a Grandmasters driver to come out and check that out. I see so many kids out there, and most of them have dads. They all have parents, and it boggles my mind that more parents don't plop themselves in a seat and at least drive, if not race karts, more often. And at Prairie City, Donald's fostering a really neat, very family-friendly thing where quite a number of the dads are also competing in Masters and Grandmasters, which is really cool.
Very cool. Yep. Grow the sport, right? One Carter at a time.
Yep. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Tom. Let's see. Michael, how about you? Final thoughts? Plug a business, plug a race team.
I work for a living, so I don't have a business to plug. But I want to thank Donald Durbin, Sr. and Jr. for helping me kickstart my second leg of karting. And thank you, Gary, for this my second season in karting. My first in 100cc. Has been great so far. Who else? Definitely my wife. Hopefully she's watching, or maybe at least the first 5 minutes of this podcast. Definitely been very, very accommodating. And you, Jason, right? I hope we're putting this on, kind of trying to. I see you trying to get more people into the sport. I gotta say, our sport could really do more to be more approachable for people outside. I think everything we've been talking about are kind of optimizing for people who's been in it, like the weight, all that we're talking about, right? If you just started, you don't care, right? And I think if I get $1 every time one of my coworker, and considering where I work, there's not a shortage of budget. $1 or what, who's interested but have no idea how to get into it. They make phone calls to businesses that never call them back. And even for us as a sport, I think there's a big gap between, hey, I'm pretty good at an indoor go-kart track, and then the slowest class that we have is probably, say, even a 206. That there's too much of a gap, not just driving, but a level of commitment, right? You go from paying $30 for 15 minutes to the next thing you know, it's like, what? Bare minimums, I may need to get a trailer. I need to spend $6,000, $7,000 on something that I might not have actually time to drive all that much to get out of it. I think for our sport, we're really lacking somewhere in between. And I'm hoping to see that. And I think once we close that, we get all the problems we've been talking about can be solved if we got 100 people show up at a track for every class.
Agree 100%. If we had more numbers, a lot of the problems go away.
Yeah. We're
Alan have his heavy class.
Yeah, you the end, or how you're trying to optimize from a limited resource, and that's not sustainable. So I kind of like, I'm really excited if I could see electric go-kart.
Okay, I have to cut you off. Honestly, it's probably we can't ignore it.
For the
especially in California, we can't ignore it.
If you have that, you're gonna have a new wave of people coming in, for better or worse, and it is what it is. So.
Yes, you just can't hear them hit you.
You hear them crash.
That's right. Well, Michael, thank you for joining us this evening. Alan, final thoughts? Plug your business.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, like all things, I got to thank Ron White Racing. At the national level, I feel like he has the best package for us Masters drivers who need to show up and have the best, package possible, especially in the shifter program. And then I also have to thank, Three Ventures, my brother Curtis, business partner Wally. They have really molded our business development efforts and our, outside sales efforts with clients, and also with recruiting some people to come work for us to really be evolved around the racing community. I got to give big shout outs to them. Wouldn't necessarily be where we're at with that. Also, Super Tuner, Jason Flores, Big Z Jerky. You want to take your karting level to the next game, try to steal my mechanic and watch what happens. But my game's definitely gone to the next level with Jason Flores. So, as much as Ron White doesn't want to hear me call him Super Tuner, I'll call him Super Tuner because he's half a mechanic and half a showman, and I'm half a mechanic and a driver. So we make a good team.
Yeah, you give him a lot of credit when you say half a mechanic.
Hey, you know what? 4 podiums in a row at Challenge. I mean, he's got to be doing something right.
Perfect. All right, Alan, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, guys.
All right, wrapping up our guest panel, David Palick.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks. So, I'm going to sort of echo what everyone said here, kind of getting off and saying thanks to similar people. And I'll start with John was very humble about, things that he's doing in the background. And he's just one example of all the people in the background that it takes to pull together like a race weekend, right? For us to get out there and compete and have fun and build these camaraderie. So, I mean, my first shout out is just to all the people that are in the background making the events happen. So, these sort of race weekends, these special things that we're able to do just wouldn't happen with their efforts. And that, that's spearheaded predominantly by Steve, Cameron. So a shout out to him and sort of his staff that falls in that. The second one is definitely over to Nick LeDuc and under the Karting Collective. So, Nick has just done a wonderful job, starting his business, starting his team. And, myself and Keegan, my son, are very, honored to be a part of his group and all the people under the tent, from the supporting staff to, the people that are in the tent that are racing in the various series. We just have a really good group of guys and gals that are making it very enjoyable each weekend to hang out with all them, which is really good. And then the final thing, I'll just kind of, complete with you, Jason. So like, your grassroots efforts here and having these podcasts and providing information for people and we're all trying to get more people into the sport, which is just going to benefit everybody. So, kudos to you, to your efforts and people that are doing things that are similar to what you're doing here, just sort of building this community and getting more people out the track, because at the end of the day, I think you heard it pretty consistently from everybody is, it's a great experience. I mean, there's ups, there's downs, there's lows, there's highs, but at the end of the day, it's a great community of people. It's fun. It's competitive. Some days you're really bummed. Other days you're flying, high as a kite. So all that comes together with, everyone kind of contributing and so there's a big community out there and just would like to see it continually grow. So yeah, that's my closing comments and, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being our first test guinea pig when we were live 2 years ago.
All good.
Welcome back to a newer, improved show.
You've come a long way, man.
David Palick, thank you. And thank you to everybody on our panel. And as usual, I say at the end of every show, if we all get one person in a karting, by next year we'll double. So I just keep telling myself that. And the website will change over time to basically facilitate that happening. So again, pretty much not every problem, but most of the problems will be solved if we just had more people and we weren't pulling from one track or one series or one class just to fill or build another one. So with that being said, upcoming shows, we have another junior driver show coming up. Masters, great job, because we almost have a second master show booked out already. Safety gear show, girl driver show, episode number 2, and senior drivers. So all of those are coming up. And then we also have CCKRA, a show for them. So that's all coming up in the next 4 to 5 weeks. So thanks for tuning in. If you like what we're doing, hit like, subscribe, hit share, send me a check. I don't care. And just remember, if we all get one person in karting, we'll double by next year.